The impossible dream of a housing crash. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee, because I want to talk about the housing market and what seems to be an impossible dream for many Australians of a housing crash. Now, the affordability of housing, well, it's not affordable, not by any measure. Property prices have just gone up for quite some time, particularly since 2000, since the introduction of GST and then home builder grants. Then we had the Olympics, we had a flood of foreign investments. Housing affordability has just climbed significantly. And this data I know is a bit old, but it's just gotten worse. And this is why we've had a lot of discussion over this last year, because there were some economic impacts. We had the bushfire starting to impact on the economy. Remember last year? We had the trade disputes with the US and China, and that was going to have the potential impact for our economy here in Australia. Australia is heavily dependent on our exports to China. Our tourism market, and we can see here it's a big part of our economy, was also dependent on a lot of international tourism. And then we had all of the issues with the economic lockdowns and restrictions and international travel hit. So we actually entered our first recession in 28 years. We can see here our GDP is going down slightly. And there we had 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. The economy's gone down. That's a recession right there. That's the definition of a recession. Unemployment shot up to 7.5% at one stage, and then up to 7% now. And, well, the rule of thumb, everyone double that to get the real unemployment figures. And so there were articles upon articles discussing the potential for a housing market correction. And a lot of people are hoping for it. They're desperate for it. It's so tough to get into the housing market. Everyone wants a home, and I understand that. We've just gone through the process of getting a rental recently ourselves. And it's really frustrating. It really is. But we had the articles in the New Zealand Herald talking about a potential 50% crash. The CBA, #1 market cap company on the ASX, predicting a warning of a potential 32% crash in their prolonged downturn. The RBA were even modelling a 40% decline, everyone, in house prices as an extreme but plausible scenario. So we've been discussing the potential for a house crash for some time. Now, housing, well, it has a special place here in Australia. It seems like everyone will tell you housing only ever goes up. Housing only ever goes up. Now we've gotten to the point where it seems like it's a Ponzi scheme, where it's so expensive to get into housing. And look, I've done several videos about this. Will the rate cuts stop a crash? So let's have a look at all of the interventions that have occurred, because I've gone through and found all the ones which I think are having an impact on the housing market here in Australia, because they're people that want a correction to actually be able to get into the market, to afford to get into the market, particularly when you know how much these things are made. They're desperate for a correction. The average person is struggling to afford to get in there, and I think this is exacerbating the class divide in Australia between those that have property and those that don't. Australia is a hierarchical society. Don't kid yourself to think it isn't. Try and get a rental property, or tell someone you're a renter and see how they treat you. I'll have a shot of coffee. Let me know. Share some experiences. Do you think Australia is a class-based society, a hierarchical society, and property is tied to it? Or do you think it's something else? Let me know your opinions while I have a shot of coffee, because this is going to be a long video. So, we've discussed the economic impact. We've had a GDP decline. We've had unemployment going up. Tourism has been stopped, essentially. Although it's starting to come back. International students were utterly stopped as well, and they're starting to come back too. But the first kickoff to these interventions, the first one was, well, the cash rate. And we've been discussing that for some time. The RBA, as well as now instituting QE, quantitative easing, where they're pretty much just funneling money towards the banks, which can have an inflationary effect. They've cut the cash rate down to its lowest level in all of history. And I've got my chart here that I'll show you. The same chart I just showed there, 0.1%. I read an article a few days ago where they're saying 3% were, or actually 3% was emergency rates, 5% was low rates for mortgages. We're at 0.1 now. You can get a fixed rate mortgage with a 1. below it, guys. It's just crazy. So this is the interventions that the RBA have done. They've done this. They've just cut the cash rate very low. They've also implemented QE. And the issue with QE, everyone, is that we've got the Cantillon effect. And I'll draw your attention to that. It refers to the change in relative prices resulting from a change in money supply. The change in relative prices occurs because the change of money supply has a specific injection point, therefore a specific flow path through the economy. So if the banks have more access to funds, more ability to loan money, where do you think a lot of that's going to get loaned to? Well, everyone's favourite market here in Australia, in housing. That's the injection point into our economy of a lot of money. Right there. When people immigrate over, what do? They borrow money, they buy houses. Injection point, everyone. So then you get a bubble. And they're concerned about that, but not overly so. Right now they're worried about keeping the economy from falling off a cliff. So we've got the cash rate and we've got QE from the Reserve Bank. And then they're calling for fiscal stimulus. But there were other things as well that happened. We had loan deferrals. Loan deferrals, mortgage holidays, everyone. That, up until that have been already extended. We can see here, here we go. Let's have a look. Loans subject to repayment deferrals. 4%. It peaked at about 10. So as a share of total loans, the total value of it, 250 billion. Right now it's between 4 and 2%. So, and you can see in April how many loans were deferred. Slightly going down. So we're steadily expiring or exiting that, but there's still a significant portion of loans that were deferred. Now, the reason this was done was so you wouldn't have a run on the market, or you wouldn't have people forced to sell. We've also had Commonwealth Bank promise that they won't foreclose on properties until September this year. Remember, this was all only for a shorter period, and this has been extended. The mortgage holidays, sure, they're new conditions and requirements, but there you go. And remember, we were looking at this chart here months ago, and this is the percentage of people that were in arrears. These loan deferrals aren't considered in arrears. They're another special category of loan deferrals, thanks to APRA. But you can see here the share of total loans, so for total housing loans, at one point it was over 10%. Now it's down to hopefully a bit more reasonable. Look at the SMEs. Small, medium enterprises, businesses. These are the businesses that create jobs. Look at how many loans they've had to defer. And you can see the number of loan deferrals, number of loan facilities. Borrowers continuing to make repayments, over 30%. Now that's gone down to 20%. Housing deferrals, share of home loans by state. We can see, look at that, Victoria over 8 and ACT with all the civil servants. And we'll look at some of those statistics a bit later. You've got loans subject to deferral, share of total loans, movement. So most of them, and this is to October, we've got many more that are expiring or they've exited the deferrals. So this isn't going up. So people are starting to pay back their loans. But nevertheless, the fact that this happened, was it foreseen? Is it it's an unnatural intervention, I would say, into the market? See, this is the problem. When people are hoping, okay, fantastic, look at all these economic impacts. There's going to be a correction in housing. There has to be. It just makes sense. Some people are pushed too far, then they're going to be forced to sell just to get out of it. But no, we've seen two interventions. We've seen one, which is the cash rate slashed to nearly 0% to just stimulate everything and to keep the economy going. But the majority of that's going to impact housing. Even at such low levels, it's just going to mean people have more access to money. Then you've got loan deferrals. So all the people that might have been on the edge have deferred their loans. Okay, so there you go. I mean, that's what's happening with the banks. Being all chummy and our friends. Call up the bank, reach out to them. And then don't forget, we also had cash handouts, So a cash handout of $750 for 6.5 million pensioners. Sure, it's not that much in the grand individually, but it helps. It makes a difference. That may be enough to keep someone, a couple of weeks of loan repayments right there in that if they were struggling. Or food for a month or two if you're really going tight. Remember, this is like the Rudd days. And they've done it again. Another round of money is starting to trickle out to people as well. How many of them do you think actually need it? And I wonder the money that's just arriving before Christmas, I wonder how much of it will simply go into the retail sector. I'm hoping it will. I'm hoping it will prop up some of those struggling businesses in retail. But here's another intervention, just the cash handouts. We can't forget that one. And then the big one, good old home builder. Now, what I've done is I've charted here how many home builders we have in each state, or applicants. And you can see Queensland, we're at 2,500, so we're doing pretty well. New South Wales is 2,300. ACT isn't coming up because it's too small, but it's not that significant compared to the others. But look at Victoria, guys. Victoria with the lockdown economy, and you'll see some of the other stats that we're going to look at with how significant a proportion of JobKeeper people Victoria has. But look at their home builder. And this is another thing. This is more housing stimulus right there. We can see here building approvals. See the blue line here, the top. That's shot up. That's new private sector housing. That's shot up, and that's because of home builder. Now, you may be thinking, okay, that's new build. How's that going to affect existing property? Well, it'll keep the economy going. Keep everyone involved in this sector as well is going to have more financial capacity, so they won't be forced to sell. Combine that with the cash handouts and the loan deferrals people are already getting, then the low cash rate that the RBA has pushed out. I mean, there you go. Western Australia, 466. South Australia, 946. Northern Territory, 29. 454 but in Tassie. But look at look at Victoria, over 4,000. People are going crazy for this home builder there. I mean, remember, we'll scroll down here. There's two stages of it. So up until the contract's signed, 31st of this month, it's 25 grand. And after that, it's $15,000. Okay? So I'll let you go through this on your own if you want to go. I've done videos on this as well, but this is just to show you this is another intervention into the market to prop up the housing sector, to prop it up. And my concern is these type of things tend to just prop up the cost of housing. It's absorbed in the construction costs. It's eaten away. Any of this stimulus is eaten away. People seem to think that they're getting a good deal, but it's not really like that. And then, of course, we have the first home loan deposit scheme as well from the government, where they've increased the number of places there. In the 2021 federal budget, the Australian government announced an additional 10,000 places for the 2021 financial year. And you've got 27 lenders. So you've got all of these lenders. And essentially the government is paying the mortgage insurance for you, so you can get in there at 5% insurance. What's that going to do? Do you think it's going to let people get into houses cheaper, or is it going to maybe encourage people to borrow money, which is like pretty much worthless now, putting it in a savings account? You get nothing for it. And I'm jumping through hoops to get 1.75%. I'm moving money around to Rabo, and that's just so annoying with all their bloody, they send me like a fob to type in. It's crazy. Anyway, I'm going off topic. Sticking money in an account is worthless. You can borrow it so cheap. What are people going to do if they now get this 5%? It might push up what they were going to buy to a higher level. So you've got this intervention as well. And sure, it's only 10,000, but it's another 10,000, another 10,000. Look here at the building approvals. That's equal to a month's worth of building approvals at our peak just recently. Then you've also got stamp duty discounts and grants. I mean, Victoria is looking at stamp duty discounts for first home buyers. Western Australia has some insane grants. New South Wales is actually looking at abolishing stamp duty and bringing in a land tax, which is a terrifying idea. You don't want to give the government, even if you think you'll get a short-term saving, you don't want to give the government the ability to tax you. That's not a good idea. So, I mean, there you go. There's another thing that's adding more fuel to the property sector, everyone. These discounts that people get. Because remember, the government, they don't have a big chunk of money. They have us. We're their tax cattle. So anything that they give you, they'll take back in the future. Just remember that. So I guess so people are thinking, well, might as well get a house. Then, remember, we had the super withdrawals. And remember how in the articles it was you could take, 2 lots of 10 grand if you're impacted. And people were saying, oh, they're wasting it on gambling and boo jobs and this and this and this. Looks like most people actually used it for debt repayments. And there are a lot of people who were stashing it away so they could get together a first home deposit. If you've got a couple and you each take out 20 grand, that's $40,000 you can go towards a house. That can really help. And I know there were some people that were saying, you know, the articles coming out going, oh, no, you'll be considered under financial distress. No one will touch you. Which, you know, I've spoken to some brokers and they say, yeah, no, that's rubbish. Wait a bit and it'll be fine. So, I mean, there's another thing that's added too. And now the discussion is as well to allow people to withdraw their super to get into housing. Now, I'm concerned because there's an element of that which will overheat the housing market even more. But I also would like to have access to my money. I would rather have my house completely paid off and a few years less of super at the end, but not have the stress of, you know, paying out my super than not. Because how many people take out their super and just use it to pay off their house at the end? There you go. But then again, I'm an advocate more of individual responsibility, and I know you'll all flood the comments with going, there are a whole lot of stupid people out there, and I agree there are, but still. So there we go. This was another element that shot up, or potentially could, impact the housing sector. I'm going to have a shot of coffee. Did you get the super out, and what did you spend it on? Boob job or debt reduction? I mean, notice here how many people spend it on home improvements or utilities, you know, government and council services. And then we also had a job seeker boost. So the dole went to, I think, New Start and increased. So here we have on this table here, what I've charted out is on the left hand side, you've got the New Start and job seeker. That's the blue line. On the right hand side, you've got over here, you've got youth allowance, other, and youth allowance student and apprentices. Look at this in March. There you go. That's where we went to the job seeker boost. Look at, and this is number of people. Guys, between, what, say 700,000? Nearly doubled the number on job seeker. Nearly doubled. And it started to come down a little bit, but it's still really high. Over 1 million people. And how? This is why people, you'd think with such a high level of unemployment, there's some people that are overextended and may have to sell the property. So you might start seeing some appear on it. The number has doubled, everyone. It's doubled. But they boosted it. So here we've got the total job seeker and youth allowance recipients per state. You can see here, Queensland with 331,000. New South Wales is at 420. Victoria is at 405. Tasmania, I think, is 36,000. You've got WA at 150. South Australia, virtually Adelaide, 120. And NT at 25,000. And the ACT is not that many, 12,000. So we can see here this boost to job seeker. But you'd expect this increase in unemployment to have an impact, but it really hasn't. Doesn't seem to have manifested in one. Probably because they've boosted this combined with all of the other handouts and support mechanisms. Then we have another one. You can't forget everyone's favorite program, JobKeeper. JobKeeper, which is potentially keeping zombie companies going. Or companies are taking advantage of it when they don't really need it, but you can't blame them. Because, frankly, if your competitor takes advantage of it and you don't, you're going to be left behind. So from April, we had 863,000 applicants for JobKeeper. 863. And you can see it's trending up, guys. It's trending up. Okay, in August, we had 962,000 applicants. And I know it's been reduced, the amount that you receive. This is a payment that was going to every business. Now, businesses may still be running and getting the JobKeeper and paying that to their staff, but they're still incurring holiday costs, long service leave, all these other entitlements that workers get that are not covered by JobKeeper. So I'm hoping they've got enough money stashed aside, or they're probably just thinking, you know what, I'll run at the clock. How many businesses are we going to see that fall apart? How many businesses would be insolvent if it weren't for this? We have a look here. We can see the JobKeeper applicants, everyone. This is per state. So Queensland, we have 175,000 JobKeeper applicants. We look at New South Wales, 323,000 with change. 289,000 in Victoria. Over 15,000 in Tasmania. The ACT's just got under, is about 9,000, nearly 10. South Australia's 57. 87,000 in WA. And only 4,700 in Northern Territory. You can see that here. So what I did is I also looked at our population by state. So we can see here, 5 million in Queensland, 8.1 in New South Wales, 6.6 in Victoria. So they're the big three. Really shows you, doesn't it, how small some of these other states are. Like Tassie is only 500,000. 1.7 in South Australia, 2.6 in WA, only 245,000 in NT. Did I enter that in right? I think I did. It can't be that. Can it be that small, guys? We'll assume it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, everyone. Well, yeah, no, it actually is. Because here we've got employed people. So we've got the population of the state, and now we have the employed people in each state. This is the number of people that are employed. 2.5 in Queensland, 4 million in New South Wales, 3.3 in Victoria. I'm assuming 250,000 in Tassie, 853,000 in South Australia, 129 in NT, and 1.36 million in WA. Now, I thought what we'd look at a percentage of the employed people on JobKeeper per each state. And that ranges from 3.69% at the lowest up to 8.76%. So Victoria, not surprisingly, is the highest as a percentage of the workforce at 8.76%. Sorry, not the workforce, sorry, employed people. Employed people. Then we've got New South Wales at 7.95, then Queensland 6.84, then you're going down to South Australia at 6.57, and WA at 6.37. I mean, look at this, up to nearly 9% of the workforce in some states are just supported by JobKeeper, everyone. How many zombie businesses is that keeping going? Now, then I thought I'd have a bit of fun. We'd look at public sector employees. You can see here, how many, nearly 600,000 in New South Wales. That's the percent of these 4 million. 400,000 in Queensland. And what I did is then I combined the JobKeeper and public sector employees to show just how much of the employed people are supported by the government one way or another. And you've got the highest, of course, is at 45.6%. You can just see the dark blue here for ACT. Guys, then we've got 22% for for Queensland, New South Wales 23 for Victoria, 27 for Tasmania. Yeah, so all the states here are mainly about 22-23%. You've got Tassie at 27, NT at 30%, and ACT at 45. I mean, it is our bureaucratic capital, so that's not a big deal. Not shocking, but just think about it. Those workforces, how many of them are supported by the state? Everyone. Now, how many civil servants have had no impact on their earning capacity either? So then, we see we now got the JobKeeper intervention in the market to see how many businesses that kept going. But the big scary one as well is, and JobKeeper was trending up, guys. The big scary one as well was trading while insolvent. And you can see here, I looked at this yesterday, we're going to have a bankruptcy boom probably at first quarter next year, once the implications of this gets removed and other support mechanisms start getting wound back. You can see here personal insolvencies are trending down. Up here around this level, that's kind of the average, guys. That's normal. We're lower here. That's the risk, everyone. And people asking, how can you say it shouldn't be good that we've got less insolvencies? It's a sign of extreme artificial intervention in the economy. You're going to have some natural destruction. People make mistakes. People over leverage. That's fine. That's a part of life. So you got to, start again. Start fresh. We can see the same thing here with companies entering external administration. Look at that. How low it's going. Guys, the trend. Look how much lower we're at the trend. And you can see here the number where the most are: New South Wales, Victoria, and Queensland. And I'll link to my other video I did on that yesterday if you want to go through that in greater detail. But this is another piece of legislation, another intervention in the market that has had an impact. I'm going to have a shot of coffee. We also have the moratorium on evictions. Now, that you would expect would have a negative impact on property, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see. So what's happening? What's happening? Now, we've got first home buyers are flooding the market, everyone. New loan commitments, total housing seasonal adjusted. We can see here, total excluding refinancing is up here, and this is owner-occupiers. So owner-occupiers are just flooding into the market. This is an owner-occupier-led housing demand. Demand for housing is going up due to owner-occupiers, everyone. It used to be investors. Investors took over in the past and were squeezing out first home buyers. So now you've got investors just sitting down there. They're not jumping back in. And let's have a look at a state-by-state level, our first home owner commitments. And you can see we're going from, leading the way, just the total numbers, New South Wales, 3,442. Then you've got Victoria with all of the issues that they've got there, guys. With all of the issues, with the number of people on JobKeeper in Victoria, with the number of people on JobSeeker in Victoria. Guys. And you've got 3,380 applicants there. So first home loan commitments are just quite high. The first home buyers are flooding in. And what's happening to house prices? Well, let's have a look at the CoreLogic data. I know some people may not trust this data, but we've got to have a look at what we're getting. So, I'm going to have another shot of coffee here. So, according to this, and this is from, a week ago, the year-on-year change for Sydney is up 4.95%. Melbourne's down 1.46%. Brisbane, including the Gold Coast, is up 4.66%. Adelaide, 5%, 5.3% up for houses. Perth, 0.88%. Five capital cities aggregate are up 2.70%. Everyone. You've got Brisbane without the Gold Coast, 4%. Darwin up 9.11%. Canberra up 7.79%. Hobart up 6.45%. And we've got units change in a year. Up, 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 up. Brisbane slightly down. Up, up, up. I don't know how this is happening. There's an oversupply of units in Brisbane. Do we trust this data? That's the question. That's the question. So this is the thing. We're getting reported by all this stuff, properties going up. We've seen all of the interventions that they've done. RBA have slashed the rates to zero. They're throwing money out of the helicopter. Yeah. We've got loan deferrals, everyone. You've got cash handouts from the government. You've got home builder step 1 and step 2, 25 grand, 15 grand, just pumping that sector. You've got first home loan deposit schemes, which I really hope does not evolve into what they did in America. Way too scary. The government should not be guaranteeing these things because it's just going to pump up the market. Everyone. You've got stamp duty discounts and grants. I would love them to abolish stamp duty and just reduce taxes, reduce government spending. I can't see it happening. They don't have the political will for it. You've got super withdrawals as well. A lot of it, people are getting desperate. They're using it potentially as a deposit for a home to get in because this is the only chance that they think they have. You've got a job seeker boost propping up people who may have leveraged themselves too far, may not have had enough savings, may not have had a rainy day fund. It never mentioned in one of these articles we've looked at for months is about a rainy day fund. You've got JobKeeper propping up hundreds of thousands of employment jobs, keeping those relationships going. But where's this money come from? How many years is the payback time, guys? It's quick. It's not quick, sorry. And how many of these businesses are going to disappear? You've got trading while insolvent. Personal insolvencies are down. And this is the first recession we've had in 28 years. Shouldn't insolvencies, shouldn't external administration, shouldn't those things be going up? Wouldn't that make sense? And then apparently we've got housing up from last year. So, is this a sign that they're just not going to let it crash? Is the hope of a market correction so housing can become more affordable just not possible because there's no political will? They will literally throw everything they can at it. Every single thing they can. I joke about Mortgage Keeper. I've been joking about that, but will we see that next year? And is this a legitimate increase in property? Because they're starting to flood the market. There are lots of people that want to sell. It's a mixed bag. You know, I've done videos where people are arguing over 1 million people are considering selling property. And what will happen with that flood? Are we just seeing a dead cat bounce in the property sector, everyone? Is that what is materializing now, a dead cat bounce? And is it going to fall again? If immigration doesn't return, if foreign students don't return, or, as we've seen by all of these other interventions into the market, is the government going to pull out every single stop they can do to ensure it just keeps ticking on and on and on? Did you think we'd have a situation where, you know, you'd have up to 8% of employed people in states, nearly 9%, subsidized by the government, everyone? And this isn't even welfare. Welfare is something completely different. That's over here, guys. You've got hundreds of thousands of people as well on welfare. You know, nearly 1.5 million people, everyone, on this. Then you add that to the JobKeeper, 1.5. We've got, what's the JobKeeper? No, that's population by state. Another 960,000. So nearly 2.5 million people. And then when we add the government employees to that as well, I don't want to do that. That's another 2. So what are you talking? 4.5 million. So, what do you think, everyone? Do you think we'll see a housing crash? Are people hoping for a correction and the ability to jump in the market just gonna never... is it a hopeless dream? Or will the bubble burst? Or will the government keep throwing every single thing they can to affect it? And will we just see massive inflation in the housing continue? Because that's what it is. These prices are just shooting up. Will they open the floodgates? Will we see a flood of immigrants and tourists next year to come to Australia? One, come all. Keep the housing bubble going. We'll have to see. As always, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Are you hoping for a correction in housing? Or are you thinking it's just not going to happen because they'll do everything they can to stop it? And the biggest problem is, all of this money that is spent on all of these things, these handouts, these home builders, these first home loan insurance things, stamp duty discounts, job seeker boost and JobKeeper, and allowing people to trade in while insolvent, all of this are resources that could have been deployed in other methods. There's a reason why our economic complexity is in the gutter, guys. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy merch from HeiseSays or Teespring. You can use a gold pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye for now.